members of the most illustrious fantasy football league, Eagle Point Butts. It is I, your commissioner, and 3-time undisputed champion Chase E. Callahan, coming to you live from the commissioner's office after wrapping up a wild week 11, heading into week 12. What a week it's going to be. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Things are tightening up across the league. Playoff implications every week. And let's kind of start there. We'll hop on over to the league rankings. And these rankings aren't 100% necessarily accurate because we do top 2 for each division for playoffs. So according to this, if the playoffs were to end today, it would be Zach, Mike, Tyler, then me. But I would actually be on the outside looking in because it would be Zach, Mike, Tyler, Tim, which is wild to think about. But that's how we do it. Top 2 in each division because we want the divisions to matter. If you don't like it, bring forth some legislation at the award ceremony. But that's where we're at right now. And I thought it'd be fun to do some power rankings this week, but also talk about playoff implications and see who can make the playoffs and how they can make the playoffs. So without any further ado, let's hop right into it. All right, in the number 1 spot, no shocker, it's Zach, who won a close nail biter against Mucho Mondos and Brandon. Brandon threw everything he could at him, and Zach squeaked by with the W, despite his best wide receiver, A.J. Brown, being invisible out there. L'Jarius Sneed just shut him down completely. And Jared Goff throwing 3 interceptions and just kind of looking awful. But yeah, Zach survived in a big nail biter. Christian McCaffrey did his thing. Keenan Allen is a stud. Josh Jacobs is kind of iffy. And Tank Dell also looks like a massive pickup. But this is what I'll say. The key to Zach's success has been health this year. I mean, this is the team he drafted. DK is still healthy. Everybody is still healthy, which is a massive deal when everybody else is dealing with injuries. You see, there's a narrative that Zach has really dominated this season. And I mean, if you look at the record, he has. But it's not like he's put up an insurmountable amount of points. It's not like he's running away with the most points scored. Tyler, and actually the second highest scoring team, is only 25 points behind him. So it's not like Zach is just blowing everybody out every week. He's consistently putting up 100-point weeks, which is going to win a lot of games whenever there's a lot of injuries. And so kudos to Zach. Hopefully you stay healthy coming into the playoffs. We look at his remaining schedule. He's got Luke this coming week, then Shay. That's not right. That's Mike's remaining schedule. Fixing that. Coming back up here to Zach's remaining schedule, we've got Brennan, then Luke, then Tyler, and then Mike, which is an interesting home stretch for Zach, still in the driver's seat, of course, for the league. And for Zach really to be secured in making the playoffs, he needs to win one of the next 4 games. If he wins one of the next 4 games, he's in. Or if Tim loses one of the next 4 games, Zach's in. Because Zach owns the tiebreaker over Tim. And so if Tim loses one or if Zach wins one, he's in. End of story. So way to go, Zach. Now in the number 2 spot, I do still have Michael Joseph Carlin because he is still 7-4. So I want to pay respect to that. But Mike is now on a 2-game losing streak. His team hasn't been putting up good numbers recently. He lost kind of a bad game against Brett. Only put up 77 points. You know, a lot of that is because Joe Burrow got hurt. So I will say that. But his team has not been performing. And Michael has now lost Joe Burrow, and he's lost Kirk Cousins. I saw he picked up Jordan Love on the waiver wire. Good move. He's playing Detroit this week. Good luck. And he has Kansas City, I think, next week. Good luck. But man, things are kind of getting dicey for Mike. He's got a 1-game lead over almost the rest of the division. He's got a 2-game lead on Brett still. But in week 10, last week, he only put up 91 points. Week before that, he only put up 89. So it's been a few weeks now since he's gotten close to triple digits. And I'm a little nervous he's kind of trending down. Tony Pollard had like a good game against Carolina, but Tony Pollard has sucked for most this year. I say that as a Cowboys fan. He's looked not the same. He's looked a little hindered. Travis Kelce looks like he still has a bone bruise and he's still injured. Debo is no longer the number 1 wide receiver in San Fran like I thought he would fade away from. I thought Brandon Ayuk would be that number 1 wide receiver, and that's coming true. Terry McLaurin is as good as Washington's offense can be, and it's not good. He's got T. Higgins. He's got Tyler Boyd, both quarterback dependent on the Bengals, who are now turning to Jacob Downing, I think. So Zach Moss losing touches. I think the magic is running out a little bit for Michael. And his remaining schedule is Luke this week, then me, then Brandon, then Zach. And so 2 tough games, maybe 3 depending on how Luke's team shows up. And the issue Mike is running into is that he's split the series with the whole division, except for me, because I think he beat me the first time we played. We play again and next week. And if I win that, we tie the series. And also, if it was down to points scored, he has the 4th most points, not in the league, in our own division. So what saved Mike is that he only has 947 points scored against him this year. And that is by far the fewest points scored against in the league. For comparison, Brendan has 1,221 points scored against him. League of Data, League of Stats. And so, a little nervous for Mike. For him to make sure he makes the playoffs, he needs to win 3 of the next 4, including a win against me. Champ and Tyler still play each other, so Mike will automatically be up 1 on the loser of that matchup if he wins 3 of the next 4 with a win over me. Things are getting dicey for Mike. Good luck, Mike. Godspeed. All right, in the 3 spot this week, we've got Tyler. I still have him in the 3 Michael Scott, because he is the 2nd highest scoring team in the league. Lost a tough matchup, a big matchup, really, with playoff implications against me. Absolutely wild showdown where Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs combined for 2.7 points. Josh Allen still scored 22.5. That's just how good Josh Allen is, for the record. But Brandon Ayuk, like I said, number 1 wide receiver in San Francisco. He's open so often. Monty's still putting up numbers, even though Jahmyr Gibbs is getting more touches. In Detroit, that was a bit of a revenge game. And so I will be interested to see his usage moving forward, because Gibbs looks like the better back. Now, that being said, and along that same vein, the split time for Tyler's running backs is going to determine his season, especially now that Mark Andrews is decapitated. Bye-bye, Mark Andrews. Whether it's Monty and Gibbs, or it's Mostert and Achane, or Ford and Hunt, these are all the starters that Tyler relies on to put up numbers as his backs. And they're all splitting time if the other person's healthy. And so it's going to be interesting to see how Tyler's team holds up. He still scored 91 points, so I'm not sitting here saying his team's not scoring points. He's done an excellent job of trying to shore things up. Deontay Foreman is a depth running back. George Kittle looks like the old George Kittle the last few weeks, so he'll plug him in and not hopefully skip a beat on tight end. That being said, remaining schedule for Tyler: Champ, Brandon, Zach, Brennan. It's a pretty tough schedule. This coming week against Champ is going to be a defining moment for Champ or Tyler's playoff hopes, in my opinion. There is nothing that Tyler can do to for sure make the playoffs at this point, except for win out and have the most points over Mike or myself. If he wins out and I win out and Mike wins 3 of 4, then he needs to have more points than either myself or Mike to make the playoffs, which he probably will, since right now he does have a pretty good cushion points-wise on Mike. But I think I'm only about 20, 30 points behind him. And this right cheek, nobody owns any tiebreakers on anybody completely yet. So this is wild. Everything's super close, and it's going to be a race to the finish. Looking forward to it. Good luck this week, Tyler. All right, staying on this screen in the 4 spot, you've got the boss, myself, winning a big game against Tyler this week, and a close matchup against Champ the week before. And my team is starting to make the playoff push at the right time. Right now, I am the third highest scoring team in the league, behind Tyler and then Zach. and I'm still only 50 behind Zach, so it's not like an insurmountable amount. But once again, if the season was to end today, I'd be out. I'd be on the outside looking in because of the divisions. So coming down here, we look at this matchup. Josh Allen, he didn't look great on Sunday. Their offense didn't look great, didn't look explosive, and he still put up 22.5 points. So that just tells you about the floor of Josh Allen. Austin Eckler didn't look great, but I'm hoping as his schedule frees up, he'll look better. Not worried about the receiving core. I am worried about Devin Singletary splitting snaps with Dameon Pierce. I'm hoping he continues to be that lead back. But anyway, remaining schedule for Chase is Brett, Mike, Brennan, and then Tim. So really interesting matchup this week against Brett. Big matchup. It's important to win this game against Brett so that I have the tiebreaker on him and win the series this year. Not sure if you guys recall, the last time Brett and I played each other, this play decided the game.
Galloping away, Mahomes pressured, escaping again. Mahomes got the first down and goes down inbounds before the touchdown.
And that's fantasy football. You know, if he runs that in, Brett and I's situations are reversed. And all of a sudden, I'm trying to split the series with him, and he's kind of in the driver's seat. So that's fantasy football, man. For Chase to make the playoffs, it's just like Tyler. If I win out and I have more points than Tyler and Mike, I'm in. So that's kind of the focus moving forward. Beating Mike next week and then having more points than Mike, hopefully winning out. Winning out would be fantastic. But right cheek, super tight. All right, and in the 5th spot this week, I've got the proud owner and operator of Brennan's Buttholes, the OG Biz himself, who won a decisive game this week against Luke, as Brennan is hoping to put Luke in the back mirror for good. Saquon, absolute beast. You know, I say this as a Cowboys fan. It's great to see Saquon healthy. He is a lot of fun to watch, and I hope he stays healthy because Brennan, the sky's the limit if you've got a healthy Saquon. The dude can just win games for you. Jaylen Warren also looked like a really explosive back against Cleveland. So it'll be interesting to see what the split looks like between him and Najee Harris moving forward. Other than that, Amon-Ra did his thing. Brennan's wide receiver core is okay, but Jalen Hurts will have better games, and these running backs are good, man. I hope that Jaylen Warren keeps getting more action. I'm more nervous about him, obviously, than Saquon, but Brennan's kind of sneakily good. He's on a 3-game winning streak, and he's getting hot at the right time. His remaining schedule, Zach, Tim, Chase, Tyler. And that is probably the toughest remaining schedule out there. So Brennan's going to need all the help he can get. He can lose to Zach and still be in it. He really needs to beat Tim week 13 so that they split the series. Because, Tim beat him earlier in the year. And so he needs to split that series. And, man, that's a brutal 4-game stretch for Brennan. I have faith because he's clawed his way back, after his tough start to the season. But, man, Zach next week, then Tim, Chase, Tyler. That's just really, really tough. So I'm rooting for you, Brendan. You're deserving of the 5 spot because you're on a 3-game winning streak, and you're scoring points. Once again, most points scored against team, 1,221 points, and he's still 5-6 on the precipice of a playoff spot. So way to go, Brendan. Hope you can pull it off, and I hope to see you in the playoffs. All right, in the 6th spot this week, we've got Champ, the victorious secret. Champ won a toilet bowl style game against Tim this past week, which happens fantasy football, right? It wasn't pretty, but he got another W without Justin Jefferson. The scary thing for Champ is now he may be without Kenneth Walker, who got injured last week. He did pick up Zach Charbonnet off the waivers, and that's not going to show because this is week 11. So good pickup, but Champ has just been decimated by injuries. He might lose Kenneth Walker, already lost Justin Jefferson, lost Cam Akers. Champ is like praying that Justin Jefferson comes back so he can do a playoff push with Justin Jefferson. That would be like the savior for his season. And the good news is He's questionable for the game against, I think he's playing Green Bay week 12, and he's questionable for it. So if Justin Jefferson can come back, watch out, because Champ could make a playoff push. He could. He's 6-5, which is wild to think about. Absolutely wild. So remaining schedule for Champ. He's got Tyler this week, then Brett, then Luke, then Brandon. And I want to say this week against Tyler is a must-win game for Champ. It's technically not, but it feels like it. Champ is 6-5 right now in a division where he's one game back from Mike in the league. There's a real possibility that Champ could lose to Tyler and then win out and go 9-6 and get that second playoff spot. There's also a real possibility, which is wild, that Champ could go 9-6 and miss the playoffs because of Mike and me. Champ's in a similar position to myself in that if he wins out and he makes it at 10-5, that means he beat Tyler this coming week. He probably makes the playoffs. But he does probably need to split this series since he lost to Tyler earlier this year. Man, that right cheek, it's just wide open still. Like, nobody is even close to being out of it. Bert, maybe, but still just wild. So good luck this week against Tyler, Champ. That's going to be a really, really, really big matchup. I don't have to say it, you know it. And then Brett the next week. So good luck. All right, in the 7 spot this week, a little bit of a shocker. I've got Brett. And it was tough to choose between Tim and Brett. I'll explain why I chose Brett a little bit later on. But in the 7th spot, we do have Brett, who won an extremely important game against Mike this week. It was a low-scoring ordeal, but Jahmyr Gibbs continues to get touches and continues to take more time away from Monty, a healthy Monty, which is Brett needs that right now because Garrett Wilson is in a really bad offense. He's not doing anything. Zay Flowers, not the wide receiver one unless people are hurt. Sam Laporta has been hit or miss. Nico Collins might not be the number 1 wide receiver on the Texans anymore. DJ Moore had a good game, but also very boom and bust, which is the story of Bert's team. Boom and bust. So he needs Jahmyr Gibbs to get more touches, and he needs more out of King Henry. Or this might not work for him, basically, is what I'm saying. The good news for Bert is his team does have ridiculously high upside. You know, on any week, any of these people can pop off because they get the touches and they get the looks to do that. They just don't pop off more than they do pop off. So remaining schedule is Chase this week, Champ, Tim, then Luke. And if Brett loses the game against Chase this week and goes back 2 or 3 games on the rest of the division, he's probably out. It's not 100% yet, but probably. Right now he's absolutely still in the hunt. He's the only one in the league that I think needs people to lose to make it through to the playoffs. I said league, I mean division. He's the only one in our division that needs people to lose to make it. He needs Tyler or Mike to lose because Tyler owns the tiebreaker between them. The win this week against Mike, however, means he split the series with Mike. If he beats Chase this week, he splits the series with Chase. And if he beats Champ the next week, he will then own the tiebreaker on that as well. So if Brett wins out from here, he will need Chase to lose another game. So 2 total, because he would need me to lose this week to him and then lose again, or Mike to lose 2 games and have more points than both of them. At that point, he should be able to make the playoffs, but it's so hairy in the right cheek. Nothing is for certain. Who knows who's going to even win games or lose games from here, obviously. If Brett loses to Chase this week, then wins out, he could still make the playoffs. That's how close the right cheek is. I think for Brett, he really needs to win this week, though, because if he doesn't win this week, he will be in a very tough spot in relation to Chase and Tyler specifically, because then Mike could lose out, but Chase and Tyler would still be fine. So I know that was a lot of gobbledygook. That's what the right cheek is right now. It's a lot of gobbledygook, a lot of what ifs, and we're just trying to get some clarity. And here we see more about how unprecedented this season is. In the 8th spot, we've got Hilton Head Whalers. In my 8th spot, we have Hilton Head Whalers, who, if the season was to end today, would be in the playoffs at the 4th spot. Unreal. He lost a kind of the garbage matchup against Champ, and Tim has a good team, but they're injured. Cooper Kupp again injured. Achane, again, injured. Odell, injured. Kyron Williams has been on the IR. Finally is supposed to come back this week. Tim needs him. Bad. Why is Tim not ranked higher on this list is probably a question people have for me. Because, as for mentioned, Tim is in the playoffs. Well, Tim is not higher on this list because Tim has not scored over 90 points since week 7. All right? He's put up very low points for the past 4 weeks. And I'm not sure that's going to change for him because Jaylen Warren looks like a better back than Najee Harris. James Cook, bright spot. Devontae Adams is finally getting the ball. Bright spot. Everybody else is hurt. Everybody else is hurt. It'll be interesting to see what Pittsburgh looks like without Matt Canada. Maybe Deontay Johnson can kick it into high gear for him. But remaining schedule. He's got Brandon this week, Brennan, Brett, and then Chase to finish off. And I got to go to that week 13 matchup against Brennan. If Tim wins that, then he owns the tiebreaker on Brennan this year. If Tim wins out, he makes the playoffs no matter what. So if Tim wins the next 4 games, he's in. But Brendan is hot on his heels right now. And if Brendan can win that week 13 matchup, then Tim may be on the outside looking quick. Looking outside, looking in at the playoffs real quick. Tim also might be on the outside looking in if he doesn't score some points soon. Because like I said, the last few weeks, the point totals have been abysmal for Tim. Hoping he turns it around, hoping he makes another run at the playoffs because he's still right in the middle of all of this. Brendan, again, has a very difficult last 4 games of the season. So, good luck, Tim. All right, in the 9th spot, we've got Luke, who lost the matchup this week against the proud owner and operator of Brendan's Buttholes, Brendan himself. And this felt like a season-defining game. It isn't because Luke is definitely still in the hunt, but it felt like it. And you can't fault Sam Howell. You can't fault Luke for playing Sam Howell in this. I mean, you're not expecting Trevor Lawrence to put up 32 points, and this is a very gettable Giants defense. And so I probably would have played Sam Howell in that situation as well, considering he's been like QB 4 or 5 up until this point. His receivers didn't show up. Jamar Chase, I mean, 1 receiving touchdown and 12 yards. That receiving touchdown saved his afternoon because otherwise it would have obviously 1.2 points. Very nervous about Jamar Chase. Very nervous about Jaylen Waddle too. Again, saying this, I've been saying it all season. I faded them pretty hard to start the season. Dalton Schultz, okay game. 9.2. I'll take that any week from my tight end. James Conner, he's getting back into things. 6.3 ain't going to cut it. Gus Edwards, Gus the Bus, looks like a stud, looks like a star. DeAndre Swift also looks like a stud, looks like a star. And so Luke, again, is not out of this. We come down to his remaining schedule. He's got Mike this week, Zach, Champ, and Brett. So a tough schedule, not easy. I think the business is probably Brennan's a little harder, but Luke's got a tough schedule as well. So the good news is I don't think his schedule is as hard as Brennan's. There's a real possibility that Brendan loses 3 of the next 4 games. Tim loses 2. Luke wins 3 of those games, and Luke surges forward into a playoff spot. He's still just 1 game behind Brendan and Tim, so he's going to really be hoping that Tim wins that week 13 matchup against Brendan. It's wild to think that Luke is still very much in the hunt at 4-7 when we're talking about 2 teams on the other cheek that are above 500 and one that is 5-6 that might miss the playoffs, but that's fantasy football. It's divisional football. So once again, Luke still right in the thick of things. Got him in the 9th spot, but his team isn't bad. He put up 91 points. Brennan just laid the biz on him. So good luck, Luke. And finally, we've got Brandon in the 10th spot, who lost, just a nail biter, a heart crusher against Zach, man. If Kansas City has some receivers that can catch a football, Brandon wins. But man, just unfortunate for him how it went down. Sucks that he did have his team showed up. He had a good game, good week. Just Kansas City's receivers, man, they just suck. Coming down here, Patrick Mahomes looked fine. As far as points go, in the actual game, he didn't look great. But as far as points go, that's fine. Joe Mixon had a great game. I think Joe Mixon will probably continue to have great games. He's in a great spot right now. I think he's not quarterback dependent. Isaiah Pacheco. I see Isaiah Pacheco, I feel like, put up like 7 to 10 points a lot. And it's because of usage in the second half. I feel like they need to keep going to him in the second half, but Andy Reid doesn't want to run the ball. Adam Thielen, 74 yards. Tyreek doing Tyreek things, looking excellent. Devontae Smith kind of had a good game. But, man, tough for Brandon. Really tough loss after making that trade for Patrick Mahomes. Now, here's where things get really interesting because we're going to go into some numbers, and I'm going to try to keep this all in order, all in my head. We're going to go through some scenarios here because the funny thing is Brandon actually is not out of the playoff race. I know that he sent that good luck text. I said the pour him one out thing, but I hit the books, man. I went and ran the numbers. Brandon is not out of this. He's not. The remaining schedule for him is Tim, Tyler, Mike, and Champ. Now, needless to say, Brandon probably needs to win out. If he doesn't win out, he's done. But let's say Brandon wins out. He ends the season at 7-8. All right. He splits the series with Tim if he wins out. And at that point, Brandon currently has scored more points than Tim. So this is where things get super interesting. Looking at the left cheek in their remaining games, Zach has 2 games left against the left cheek, Brendan and Luke. Brennan has 2 games left against the left cheek, Zach and Tim. Tim has 2 games left against the left cheek, Brandon and Brennan. And Luke has 1 game left against the left cheek, and that is Zach. So why does this matter? Because all of those teams can lose games to the right cheek and not give wins to the left cheek on those weeks that they obviously don't play to the left cheek, which helps Brandon. So it is a very real possibility that Brennan loses to Zach, Chase, and Tyler, which would put him at 6-9. So Brennan could go 1-3 in the remaining 4 games, right? End up 6-9. Tim could lose to Brandon this week and then lose 2 of the 3 to Brennan, Chase, and Brett and go 7-8. But if Brandon already split that with Tim, split that tiebreaker with Tim, and Brandon wins out and goes 7-8, and Brandon has more points than Tim, Brandon takes that playoff spot. And it's also not so much like a far stretch to think Tim could also go 1-3 and end up 6-9. Luke has already split the season series against Brandon. So if they're tied at the end of the season and Brandon has more points, Brandon is in. And Luke only has a 1-game lead on Brandon. So the most important thing for Brandon, obviously, is win this week against Tim. Brandon is not dead yet. In fact, I would say he's not that I'm not going to say not that close to being dead. Like, I would give him a 10% chance that he's still alive. Just because I think there's a real possibility that the left cheek doesn't win games against the right cheek because the right cheek is just a much stronger division. Records show that. So, Brandon, don't lose faith. Keep praying. You're not dead yet. I'm rooting for you. Good luck, man. I'm glad you're not dead. And this is the wildest season we've ever had because we've never gone into week 12 and not had people just out of playoff contention. Everybody is still in playoff contention. Week 12. That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. I'm super excited to see how this shakes out. Super excited to see what it looks like after next week as things tighten up on everybody. So, awesome. USDA certified lean. All right, and finally, we've got the USDA Certified Lean America Game of the Week. It is a division rivalry, a division matchup between myself and Bert. Playoff implications, of course, here. I need to win to own that tiebreaker over Bert, but it should be a really good game. Bert's team looked good last week, so looking forward to a great matchup. And there's a lot of great matchups this week. Champ and Tyler, another huge one with playoff implications. So looking forward to a lot of great football this week. Looking forward to Thanksgiving tomorrow. Once again, happy Thanksgiving. Leah's upstairs. If you hear the stuff in the background, she's making a cheesecake, listening to Christmas music. So love that the holiday spirit is here. Hang out with your loved ones. Tell them you love them. Enjoy football. And have a great week. Eagle Point Butts. Happy Thanksgiving.